This episode of this Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey is brought to you by energy healer Jean Border's personal, powerful transformation program. Know you're leaving money on the table, but can't figure out how to bring it in? Need to double your productivity and profitability? Need an extra push to get things moving in the right direction? Visit www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com/transformation now and apply for a business consultation with Jean. Welcome to the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey, where we take out your emotional baggage and heal your emotional body so you get to enjoy the success you desire and deserve. Prepare to feel a sense of relief and empowerment as we get rid of the baggage you've been carrying that's held up your business success up until now. Be sure to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, get comfortable, and prepare to take off.
Hi, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. How are you doing today? I have another special guest. I'll get to her in just a second. If you can hold on, Michelle, I want to offer something to my listeners. A lot of my clients have been struggling a little bit, I'll say, with the financial climate here in the U.S. recently. So I've created an EFT tapping protocol that might benefit some of my listeners. If you're familiar with EFT or tapping, just go to jeanborder.com/vow, VOW, and grab the free tapping sequence to help it. It came out of a desire to help my clients calm down a little bit with the money situation and get over the blocks that seem to be interfering with their internal peace. Okay. So it's just jeanborder.com/vow. And now back to original programming, as they used to say. This is Michelle Greenwell, or Be Well. Michelle, how are you today? Nice to have you here.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Michelle is a friend of a friend. For those of you who listen religiously to my podcast, way back when I first started, one of my guests was Marian Egan from Ireland, who does something called heart art. And she's very well connected all over the world. And one of her connections happens to be Michelle, who is in Canada. So talk to me a little bit, Michelle, about what you do.
My background really is movement to heal the body. That's what I am passionate about. And I also I consider myself a tea artist. So I have this passion with herbs and creating tea blends. The work that I've been doing with Marian with her heart art magic makes incredible cards and artwork. And I also make card decks. My card decks have movement options in them, affirmations, so for goal setting, those kinds of things. And working with Marian, we've been able to actually meld our two worlds together. So I can do movement with art, and there's a whole emerging area in wellness that's called neuro arts. And it's a way for people to bring all of these pieces together. So it's a title I've started to play around with because I've been doing it for a long time through dance and Tai Chi and choreography and writing and movement patterns. And I really do enjoy the power that brings to the mind, the way the mind functions, and the way the rest of the body is able to open and bring flow in. That was a long answer for you.
No. That's very interesting. And we were talking about Tai Chi before we got on the air. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and brought it in. So talk to me about, and this wasn't going to be the focus, but since you brought it up, talk to me about your tea and how herbs would play into movement.
Yeah. And you think, how does that work? Almost a decade ago, I had a business partner, and the two of us were working on the 5-element theory from Chinese medicine, which is how the body brings balance and flow to the different systems. That's its most basic component. And we wanted to be able to offer to people a way that they could leave a session and be able to go home, have the tea to sip on, but have intentions with the tea. And that would give an opportunity for people to continue their goal setting. And as you were talking about with the tapping, when those fears come up, being able to calm the fears through a cup of tea. I took over the company full-time last year, and I do still have intentions on all the packages, but I've also started to play with what is the spiritual essence of an herb. So yes, it has medicinal qualities, and we can look at that if we want to solve a problem. But a lot of times we actually don't know where the priority of the problem is. We know we have a sore throat, but we don't know why. And so this gives you the opportunity to tap into the power of the herbs and the combinations that they're put together with. And it's that conversation that they have that comes through in your cup of tea. And that cup of tea then becomes a way for you really to express in the case of a sore throat, express yourself differently, be able to speak your truth, be able to come from behind and really know how you want to share what you're doing.
That's very interesting how all these different modalities are coming into play just in that simple explanation. Speaking your truth, like with the throat chakra, right? I mean, it's very interesting how this modality calls it this, but this modality calls it that. But it's really the same thing expressed differently. But the more you understand the different modalities, the more background you get, the more things can make sense because you're getting a bigger picture rather than just, oh, your throat chakra's out of balance. Well, what does that even mean, right?
Exactly. Yep. One of the things, when I went back to school almost a decade ago, I had a psychology degree. I taught dance. I used my psychology degree in how I could cultivate choreographies for people, create storylines, bring emotions alive through movement, help dancers find their way to express themselves, children to be able to grow up and be confident in what they're doing. So I was using it in that capacity. But I also had the education of Touch for Health, which is how the muscles relate to the different systems in the body and how they tell us stories. And so in the last decade, in my studying to get a complementary and alternative medicine doctorate, I really dove into the power of movement and what are the key pieces we need to have in place in order for us to shift where we are. And so with the focus that you have, with the audience you have, I have a very specific way that I operate every day by using my goals and intentions and activating them all day long. And then going back to my body and where is the stress in my body and how is it showing up? Is it showing up with my neck forward into my computer because I've been focused so hard on a project? Or is it in my posture of the way I'm sitting or maybe the way I'm standing at work? And then what is it telling me about the way my stress is feeding into my body and then shifting it so that it can release and you can actually go to what's got balance and flow in it.
That's very interesting. I hadn't thought of checking the physical body throughout the day to see where the stress is. That seems like such an obvious thing, but it never occurred to me. So I'm sure it hasn't occurred to a lot of people.
Well, you sit down at your desk and you go, I have this work to get done. And you're working on a project and you get zoned into it and you could be there for hours. No, you don't drink very much. You're not sitting properly. You might curl your toes up underneath your chair. All these little things that you do. And then you finish and you go, I'm done. And then you stand up and you go to carry on with your life. And your body's going, just a minute. I served you for 4 hours and you now need to serve me back. You need to put everything back into alignment, that the stress was lined up to get that project done and you need to take care of me now. And so that's when people stand up and they go, oh, my hips are so tight. Or the usual one, if you've been at the computer, my neck. oh, my neck is so stiff. I've got that hunch that just, it just keeps getting bigger. Yep, it is, because you're not changing anything. You get up from the computer, same body, you carry on with your day with the same body, but you didn't stop and go, how can I serve you? And I really try to pay attention to that every day. I'm not necessarily always when I'm in the middle of a project, but certainly once I'm finished or partway through when I get that wall that I can't get past it and I can't seem to come up with the solution I need for what I'm working on, then I stop and go, okay, let me go move for a little bit and figure out what I need, and then I come back. And usually then it just flows.
Typically, I think I'm pretty good with body posture, but not always. On Saturday even, and it was so unusual for me that it made a huge impression, I was working on, I was creating a very basic intro-level introduction to muscle testing and the sway test, right? I want it very basic, but I also want it to work well for the person who tries it for the first time with relation to making strategic business decisions, right? And so I'm going to say I was on my computer less than a half an hour. But when I went to take a break, my neck burned. I mean, it burned. I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I doing that allowed that to go on that long where I didn't even realize the stress I was putting on myself somehow?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a little exercise that might illustrate so people can really start to understand how much information the body is sharing with us.
Cool.
If we do that?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, so typically I would do turn your head to the side and see how far you can see and what you notice about your neck.
It's tight. I can tell you already. It's tight.
Right. And you'll find that when you turn one way, it might turn a little bit further than the other side. That's typically what people find. And you probably find there's going to be some spot in your neck it's rearing its head. So with that movement, we already know we're imbalanced because one side can move further than the other. So it needs a change. The other is you should be able to see all the way behind you. Most people don't realize that, and their vision is kind of where their glasses are, the edge of the glasses, so it's like to the corner. So if you're lucky enough to get to the side, great. But for a lot of people, they can't even get that chin to line up with the shoulder. It's too tight. So one, you already know where that stress level is at. But let's take it one step further. How integrated are you? So now when you go to turn your head, notice what happens to the rest of the body. And we're sitting down, which means our hips are stationed. They can't go anywhere. So when you turn, what happens to the rest of the body? So you turn, and then notice you've probably got a little bit more range, but you can notice different parts of the back, different parts of the belly. So try the other side as well.
I felt turning this way, I felt the back of my neck and the top of my spine stretch that I didn't feel going that way.
Nice. Nice. And when we don't usually think of that either, right? We think isolated movement, you're turning the head, but we don't ever ask, am I integrated? In Brain Gym, we would have conversations like, are both hemispheres working together? Or one side's dominant, the other one's turned off. We want to bring them back together, but we don't ever think about how is the body integrating? Do I have all integrity through the entire core of my body that I can spiral and take my head around? And that changes just by our intention, which thank goodness, because then you can see a little bit further, but you still notice the levels of stress in there. And then to be able to activate it with something really simple, it just changes the whole way that the body's going to function in making a decision, the way you're working on a project, the way you might talk to coworkers, the way you may talk to customers, just because you can take that pressure out of the system.
So in my situation, what would be something that you would suggest for someone, just based on that?
Yep.
What is it, a movement or a thought process or something that I should consider to, in the future, become more aware, or to relax whatever is not relaxed at the moment?
And this one you may know. This one I use a lot. I use it for a lot of different things, and that's just rubbing the ear. Have you done that?
I did that and I don't remember what modality it was, but yes, I have done that.
Okay.
And how did that relax the body?
Okay, so for those people who are listening, I'm going to take my same hand to my ear, and I'm going to unroll the edges of my ear, and I'm going to go from the top of the ear to the bottom, and I'm just going to pull out as I'm going along to the bottom, okay? And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper on the second round, top to bottom, and then a little bit deeper, so you're into the inner part of the ear, not finger into the ear, but just into the center part, and then pull down. Okay, from acupuncture, every point we just rubbed goes to every system in the body, and now your ear is heating up. And if we look at what time of day it is at the moment while we do it, we set our body clock. So if our body clock is slightly off, we didn't sleep well the night before, our body thinks it's 4 hours different than it should be, we're hungry when we're not supposed to be, those kinds of things, that can reset it, but it can also reset all the muscles. So let's go the other side, so we're even. For musicians, singers, people who need to have a rhythm, this can actually put you right on the beat. So for dancers, putting you on the beat of the music can be important, because when you're nervous, you often go too fast. If you're a podcaster and you have something you want to say, sometimes you'll speak too quickly just because the nerves come in, and that just calms the whole system down. I was trying to think of different ways that different business owners, entrepreneurs might not think about how they present themselves and what happens. So you can feel the heat that's in there. You could probably feel an openness kind of come into the head. Now, if you turn the head with the idea of how far can you see what that feels like.
Farther.
And you probably noticed it's integrated, because you can feel your whole core go with you. You didn't even think about it. That means now you don't have to think about being integrated. It just is, which is important for really good decision making and saying the right thing out of your mouth. But now let's go to integrated. Think about integrated and see how far you can see. That's quite a ways.
Much farther.
Yeah. And I can see right behind me to the fireplace right behind me now, which I couldn't get to before. Yeah.
What I find interesting, well, I shouldn't, because it happens all the time, but when you were first asking me to see how far I could see, and that people should be able to see much further than they believe that they should, the first thing that came to mind was, well, I play the piano, so my peripheral vision is typically pretty good, because if you're going to see the director who's typically over here somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And your music is in front of you here, you have to be able to read both at the same time. So it's a very interesting experience if you're an accompanist, which is what I prefer to do. But then I also I do a lot of Tony Robbins events, and he's always doing these things, where he's pushing the idea that the imagination, the mind can't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. So you can utilize your imagination to improve what you can see, to improve your results, to improve your physical body, right? And so that's where I thought we were going, and that's not where we went, but it all goes together.
It all goes together. Yeah. Yeah. Because you can imagine now, if you can see 360, what kind of ideas will come to you? What will come into your vision that you hadn't thought about? What way might you react or make a decision about something you've been thinking about, and you didn't have that 360 view? You had a very narrowed view, and you don't even realize it, because it's always like that. You didn't take the time to put everything back into balance. And when you do, oh my gosh, the intuitive hits that you get, the people that come to you with pieces of information that you need in order to make the good decision, all of a sudden they just appear because you created the flow for it to be able to come to you. And you did that by opening up the body.
This is an awful long question, but what type of people do you like to work with? What type of issues do you get the most juice from helping people with?
My favorite is my online group activities, because when each of us comes in with our goals of where we want to be, we're working collectively. So your goal, even though it might not have been on my radar, but what you decide to bring to the table that day, I never would have even thought of. And all of a sudden, I have a new possibility because your goal mixed with my goal. And so when there's a group of us all collectively putting those goals together and then going into movement activities together, we create that space. This last Saturday, my Chi integration class, one of the ladies said she was very upset with the way the global running of everything was happening. And she wanted to bring peace to that. Now, the rest of us brought smaller little goals to it.
Yeah, I want to fix the world. Let me fix the world.
Right? And she said that, but now we have all of the goals that we brought to the table plus hers, and then we bring balance and flow to all of that. At the end of the session, when everybody's finished and we do kind of any insights that we got, how are we feeling? What do we notice about the movement? What are we going to do next for the week or whatever? That piece of conversation, and to hear her at the end of that session go, I feel okay now. We didn't solve the world's problems, but there's a balance and a flow, and we've now connected into that network that is in flow, and that means I feel okay. And so for me, that's like candy. Saturday morning is candy for me, Other people would go, oh, I have to get up early. I just want to sleep in. And I'm like, I get to get up and I get to have fun with my class. It's lovely.
Yeah, and that's a language thing too. The difference between I have to and I get to.
Yeah.
Very basic, but words have power. And if you change the way you look at things, things change, right? Mm-hmm. Your attitude changes. The goals that you go into a project with can change slightly because you're looking at them differently, and possibilities is really big for me. So opening up possibilities, you never know what good can come from that. But that sounds really cool as a Saturday morning activity.
Mm-hmm. It changes your weekend because you really go, you get to do all this cultivating, and then you carry on with the weekend and you can let go of whatever your goals are. Everything's in alignment, and it changes the way you do your activities across the weekend. A lot of times I am working on the weekend, depends what we're up to, but I do it in a really relaxed, casual way instead of that during the week, busy mind scheduling. Everybody's in that frenetic space, and I really can enjoy what I'm doing, and I can walk it through at I think it's at a slower pace, but I get it done in a shorter period of time. Yeah.
I'm guessing that it's not really at a slower pace. It's just that there's less tension, so it goes with more ease, so you don't feel like it took as long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's just my take on it. I may be totally wrong, but I have a feeling that's what's going on.
And then I always sip some really good tea.
I try to do the water thing. I'm sure I don't do enough water, but I make the effort. Now, I have all kinds of teas in my kitchen. I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a tendency to be drawn to tea when I don't feel my best, or when I feel like my throat is starting to feel something, and the tea calms it. And it may just be psychological, but that's my belief, and so it works.
So then you have two ways, right? Because most people will say they'll pick something up, they'll use chamomile because it's good for They'll use whatever because it's good for. But what you're asking the herb to do is solve all your problems. One herb, please solve all my problems. And the herb is like, okay, I'll help you a little bit, but like that's a big burden. But if you go to the herbs and say, I want to play with you today. What can you bring forward for me? What is it that brings and cultivates out of who you are and what you do? And so some are good for helping us to see clear visions in the distance of the future. Some are for closer up kinds of things. And so to be able to play with them and say, okay, this combination has come together. I have one tea that's Mission for Change Community Tea. And it's actually a fundraiser piece that we do for a family. And it was put together to create community, to help support people to cultivate. From a business perspective, if I sit down with that cup of tea in the morning, how many people am I going to be bringing to my table by having that cup of tea as I interact with different people through the day on my projects? And then if I'm actually in a business setting where I could sit down with my colleagues, we could all be sipping on that same tea, and we're going to all be on the same wavelength. So now when we go to dive into a project, we're not all coming from our different places. We all end up coming from the same place and going, how do we take that further? And that takes the fragmentation out and the place where you don't agree with different people on the approach that you want to take or how you want to do something. Everything comes into a center. It's really interesting to play with the teas in that way and allow them to do what they do best, which is lift us.
Very interesting. Intentional tea selection and purpose. I've never heard of this concept before. For whatever reasons, I was trying to think, what are my favorites? My favorites, rose hips, pomegranate. I don't know what that means, but I like those two teas a lot. Mm-hmm. And I have others. I have the salted caramel, but that's very rarely do I actually use it. But I like looking at it, so it does something for me. But I'm when I actually go to select teas, a lot of times it's rose hips and pomegranate. Mm-hmm. So there must be something there.
Yeah.
So talk to me about kinesiology. You have some background in that as well, right?
I do. And in Canada, we can't call it that. So we call it bioenergetic wellness.
There we go. I knew I'd heard that somewhere.
Yeah. So what that really is saying is, how do you get feedback from the body so that you can make choices that are good choices for what you need to do? And you were talking about muscle testing. We refer to it as muscle monitoring rather than muscle testing, just to get away from that chiropractic physiotherapy where you're trying to check the way the muscle has strength and more what's the energetic connection within the muscle. And the second part is you were talking about the body pendulum. I loved the body pendulum because that's where you find out, is the body in balance and does it feel centered and good, or does it feel like you're being kind of knocked off your pedestal? And so to be able to use that body pendulum and again, I get to come back to the goal that I have. Do I feel centered in where I want to be? And then I can go into which muscles link to which systems, and then how can I change things from there? And I usually do it through movement. So dance or Tai Chi or just some smaller pieces, playing with props, whatever it happens to be.
Playing with props, what does that mean?
Oh, I might have a scarf, a fan, feathers. As you're moving, there's just so many things you can do. Or in the case of, as we've talked about, Marion would take her card and she would feather it through the system. And that's a whole other way to energetically shift things. But you can take that and move it. And yeah, so props can be really helpful to move you in ways that you might not think to move. Or if you're shy about moving, and you kind of tend to keep your arms smaller, a scarf is going to allow you to spread your wings and really move. In Tai Chi, we use sabers. Sabers are lovely to spin around and integrate. They feel so lovely in your hand. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So you talk a lot about goals. Do you set goals every day, or do you set goals once a week? How do you work with
All
goals?
the time. All the time. And I have, Marion has a diary she writes in every day that she sets up so she could strategically find hers. Mine are woven through my notes of people I've met, things I've talked about, projects I'm working on, and I just kind of, they weave through. They're sometimes bigger goals, sometimes smaller goals. But what I discovered on my dissertation was, as kinesiologists or bioenergetic wellness people will do, we'll focus on the muscle monitoring part about getting the information from the body, what it needs, and how to activate to go forward. But the key piece in the work that we do is actually the goal setting and intentions that we do at the start of our sessions. And so I do it at the start of meetings. I do it at the start of projects. I do it through the projects. I do it with the people I'm working with. So if we're having a conversation about a new project, we always start with what is our intention today? Where are we going to go? And then off we go. That also takes some of the angst out of things because people then are right in flow with what's going to happen. Activation is important. So that would, for me, that could be movement. If it's something that comes from muscle monitoring, you want to touch some neurolymphatic points. Sorry, neurovasculars would be on the head. That's where my hand went for those people listening. Neurolymphatics would be rubbing a point on the body, maybe tracing a line for the meridians. Different ways that you can activate, and that brings us that balance and flow that comes through. So that's the way I like to do it, and I really do strategically do everything during the day. And it's not like I set up this big 20-point piece at the start of the day and I've got to do this. I ask, what does my body need today? Here's where I want to go. Here's how I'd like to experience my day, what kind of quality I want, and then off I go with it.
Two things came to mind while you were talking. Number one, you may have heard of Brendon Burchard. He's a motivational speaker guy. With he's got an app called Growth Day that I like. But in his planner, he's got a daily planner. I use all kinds of planners and journals. I rotate through them depending on what I feel drawn to for a period of time. But one of his end of the day questions where you rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale is, I was intentional in my actions today. And so you're like, what the heck? What? But the more you have to answer that question, the more you become intentional about how you want the day to go, how you want the activity to go, how you want to show up for all these things that you've got, tasks or meetings that you've got scheduled for your day. And another thing that came to mind was, when I work with, you kept talking about being strategic. When I work with clients, a lot of times they're not even clear on what they want. And so first we get them aware of what it is exactly they want, rather than just this pie in the sky, I want lots of money. Well, do you really? Why do you want it? What is a lot? Is it the money? Is it the security? What is it? Or is it a business decision? What do you want the outcome to be, right? So you become aware of what is it you really want. Then you get clear and focused on why you want it and what you want the outcome to be. And maybe that's not even the best course. Maybe there's another course of action. But that's the third part, is taking strategic action, taking the right steps that get you towards your new awareness, your new focus, right? So the strategy part is really important. And I think a lot of people just throw something against the wall to see what sticks? They just, well, I want a lot of money. Well, do you? Or do you want security? Do you want to be able to do things with it? What do you want to be able to do with it? And that might be an easier way to get you the money, is to decide what you want and figure out ways that will get you there,
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a tangent, but you brought it up. So,
well, I think the important thing there is the effort,
mm-hmm.
because you can think it up in your head and set the intention and then work towards it.
Yes.
I'm using those words specifically. Or you set the intention, you bring balance and flow to it. You energetically put it into an alignment. So using some kind of activity that brings it into flow, and the flow takes care of it, and your effort is done. That's the key piece. So many people want to do it themselves. They want their mind to be in control of it. And the universe can have a completely different idea of where you need to go. And that's when you have a hard day, because nothing went right. And it's really lovely to be able to let go of it. And so I can sit down and I know my purpose at the end of the day. I want to have this, this, and this done. And I end up on a tangent that takes me way out in another direction. And I don't even get to the stuff that I thought was my priority. But in 2 days' time, when I do get to that, what I thought was priority, 4 people will have sent me information that made it better. So if I had done it on Monday and not waited till Wednesday, I wouldn't have had the best product. So that's how being in flow takes you out of your head and the controlling, I can solve it with the knowledge that I have. No, you want to say, I want all those people who have more knowledge than me to send me the information I need so I can really do a much better job and I can grow and learn from it. Yeah. And that's what I love about this work, is it's every day is exciting. Every time you get to interact with people, it's just more knowledge, nourishment, growth. It's lovely.
Something else that I feel like I need to bring up is that there's a difference between goals and tasks. Goals are the big picture that are going to feed you, that are going to get you excited. A task is an activity you do to move you towards or past your goals.
Right.
And sometimes they become one and the same. We just create a to-do list and think that's our goal, is to empty our to-do list. Well, no, it's not, because tomorrow you'll have a new one, right? There's never an end to the to-do list. And that's just
and I like that list, and it sits on the side because there's things I don't want to forget. I said I would do something for someone. I don't want to forget that. So it goes on the to-do list. But then I forget about the list, and I carry on intuitively going through my day. If I go back to the list, I will have inevitably done most of it, and I might have missed a small detail, but that detail could take me like 2 minutes. And it's just like, oh, yes, I did forget to send that email. I could do that. But if I let it go, then I'm not trying to linearly fill it out. I'm able to respond in a much better way. And I find for me, that allows me the opportunity to be it's more fun. It's more fun for me than I'm at work all day. Yeah.
And that is also important. The fun brings a different feel to the work.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just work, then it's a drudge. It's slower. It's problematic. It's all, we a lot of times attach negatives to work. But if we're having fun, look what all I got done. The excitement level, the physiology changes in the body. Everything is different when you can look at it, step outside and say, what is my goal and how can I get there and enjoy the process? As opposed to, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. Well, if you hate it, you're doing it wrong. There's something about it that doesn't align, I'm going to use that word, that doesn't fit the way you work or the way you think or the way you believe. So some part of that needs to be taken out of the equation and you adjust what you're doing slightly so that you no longer hate the process. And that's where intuition plays a big role.
Exactly. And intuition, when you're in flow all the time, Intuition is just weaving in and out of what you're doing. You haven't blocked it by trying to solve it with your head. You're allowing possibility to be there. Yeah. Yeah.
What's one of the biggest issues that people come to you with?
Most people, they just try to solve everything with their head. And they try to fill in the blank. My back is really, really sore, so I got orthotics. Oh, and now I have a bite guard because I've been clenching my jaw at night. But now I have this pain over here. And then you look at them and you go, okay, so you put yourself in one position and then you put yourself in another position and you still haven't done the work. You just asked these apparatuses to hold you in position. Complete imbalance. That's most people. And then they go, I just don't understand. It didn't change. It didn't change. You have to start listening to the body, listening to what's being said, and when you feel like you want to have those potato chips at 9:00 at night, you go, why? What is it your body needs? How is it saying to you, please nourish me? And you're going, all right, I'll give you the potato chips, instead of saying, I haven't moved at all today. I could go and grab that saber and I could do a whole saber set and then see how I feel. Usually I go, that saber set was so lovely, I'm going to do another one, and all of a sudden you're in a different place. Yeah.
Both of us are healers. We use different modalities, but we're healers. And one of the conversations that I typically end up having with a lot of new clients in particular, once they've been with me for a little while, is by the time something becomes chronic, your body has tried so many ways to get your attention and you've ignored it, that now we're able to understand what your body's been trying to tell you and get rid of some of those things that you've been carrying and get rid of that baggage you've been carrying around that's been weighing you down, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you have something wrong in one part of your body, that's your body telling you there's an issue, pay attention. And like you said, we'll get a wrist guard because our wrist hurts because we use the mouse all day long, right? Oh, well, you've got carpal tunnel. Well, what's the fix for that?
I'll go have surgery.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'll go have surgery, which may or may not help at all, and it may make it worse, and, you never know. But then, I'll just switch my mouse to my other hand, and then a year down the road, you've got the same issue now, but with both hands, right?
Yeah.
So if we can activate the intuition and ask the body, what is wrong? What is creating this? Why are you trying to get my attention? And then pay attention to what we're doing. We might not have to go to the hospital and have surgery and pay all those expensive medical bills that our insurance company decides they will or won't pay, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then that's where the movement for me, because I can understand movement, and I brought myself from not being able to walk on my feet and losing that ability to having to rebuild the body. But that process in the last couple of years since COVID and doing so much more work online, really listening to what are those small signals? How can you turn your head? Could you reach down towards your toes? Not that you have to touch them, but what does it feel like? If it's tight right from your neck, right at the very beginning, you have a lot of tension in there. You need to address it. Not wait for the time to go by, but really take the time today and do something with it. And it's simple. You and I were talking about Tai Chi. It doesn't have to be the 108 moves from Tai Chi. It might just be one movement pattern, and it can bring everything into alignment. That's it. But I think people, because of the fitness industry, you need to go to the gym. You need to get, you need your trainer, and it's like time that's got to be built into your schedule. Instead of when I step up from my computer and I go to get my glass of water, I just take a minute or two and I do a couple movement patterns. Everything calms down, goes back into alignment, and I carry on with my day. It's just simple, very simple.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So we haven't spent a lot of time. We've spent a lot of time on what I was interested in, but a lot of times my listeners are interested in any obstacles they may face when starting out their business or trying to grow their business, or any pitfalls they might need to be aware of that maybe you've experienced that they might not want to have to go through. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. As you're saying that, I was thinking about, I have this staircase in my house and I work from home most of the time. I do go out to teach classes and things, but when I go up the stairs and notice that my knee is not functioning correctly, that's my signal I'm not doing the correct thing, right? Some people go, oh, my knee hurts, and then hobble up the stairs. But I actually stop and go, I'm not going in the right direction. I'm not looking at this correctly. And then I spend some time thinking about it. So sometimes we're busy doing because that's the business. And we just don't take that time to just step back, look at the picture, listen to the signals, and then go, okay, what if I did this differently? Or do I know somebody who has experience in that area that I could reach out to? And the other piece that I think business, particularly entrepreneurs, right, where we do it all. We have to do it right from marketing all the way through production, and it's us, because that's the way it is as an entrepreneur until we're lucky enough to be able to bring people in. But if you start to surround yourself with people who have different skills than you have and definitely a different mindset, they're going to challenge you. They're going to pull you in new directions. And if you start listening to those cues that are coming in, you're going to start to realize where you go off the rails and where you can come back on. And you'll start to get those signals. And it's I'm thinking about, going down the luge run where you can go right off the sides, right, and out of control, or you can find a way to get so it's in the center and it's a much smoother ride. But that information is coming. And for entrepreneurs, yes, you're in your business on your own, but you don't have to be. And you can really find incredible people who are going to take you places you never imagined. Like Marion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's this old saying, find someone who's already mastered what it is you're trying to do and learn from them. That way they already figured out a step-by-step process. They've already gone through a lot of the pitfalls that they can bring to your attention. Mm-hmm. Or you can just start from scratch and try to work your way through it and hit all the potholes in the road and knock the wheels off your new car and all this stuff, right? Or take the easy way and learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah. And most people are willing to share how their journey has been. Yeah. And they're willing to share how they solved a few problems. So it's taking that time, and that's part of business too. So whether you belong to a chamber of commerce and you attend those business meetings, you don't sit with people you sit with other people. You try to find someone in the room that looks interesting you want to talk to, and then you ask them questions about them. Instead of focusing on what you need, you ask them questions. What is your business like? What do you do? How can I help you with your business? And then all of a sudden you'll start to see it come back in a new way. Yeah.
Good point.
And people are surprised too. When you say, how can I help you with your business? They're usually taking it back because they're not ready for someone to say, I'm willing to help you.
Because they're waiting on you to pitch your business.
Exactly. Yeah. who knows if what you have is going to even be valuable to them. You're not going to know till you say, what do you need? Yeah.
And so many people push as soon as it's one of my, I just shake my head, even on social media. As soon as, someone wants to, like LinkedIn, they want to join your network, right? So you accept them and immediately you get, I have a product that will be great for you. When do you want to schedule a call? I'm like, I don't want to marry you. I haven't even met you yet, It's like, but it's very off-putting to at least people like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intuitive. I have a lot of leadership background, but I also want to feel my way through an introduction before I decide I want to spend any time at all with the person, So turning that around and saying, I'm not selling you anything right now. I want to see what you have to offer. That's a different way of interacting for an introduction.
Mm-hmm. And Marion and I, when we met, we were both presenting at the same conference. She was presenting after me. We both presented on our card decks, but very different projects, completely different projects. And so I had sent out, I'm really, your presentation was wonderful. I really enjoyed what you're doing. I'd love to chat more about how you did it. And we got together and we talked about our two pieces, but then we said, I wonder what's a way we could work together. Now, we're both in the same area, both trying to sell our card decks, but how could we work together? And it took us about 6 to 8 months before we figured it out. We met once a month and we just kept talking about what we were doing. We used our decks to set our intentions and we worked together and we exchanged our decks. And then all of a sudden we figured out how we could work together, and it included adding one more person, and we had a whole new venture. And wow, how incredible. And so we were talking about the fact that I met her last year at this conference, and this year we'll both be in person at the conference rather than virtual. And it's so exciting. We're both presenting, but we've both grown in this year with what we've done with our projects. So I'm just sharing that example because I never would have thought that just because I reached out to say, I really liked your card deck, what a difference, an incredible wealth of knowledge.
Well, being open, I come back to this, being open to possibilities is such a big thing. And unless you live in your own little vacuum, possibilities are everywhere. It's just a question of which one fits your business at this moment in time, which one fits your skill set, your knowledge, your dream, your focus. But if you shut yourself off to that, life becomes harder. Growing your business becomes harder when you think it's all about you and all the effort you have to put in, not get to, right? So we're back to language again, which is another thing I push, is being aware of how your language impacts your body.
Yeah. And then that other piece is the muscle monitoring piece, is that asking those questions, how does the body feel about it? How does it affect my body? Because that's going to affect my outcome. And that information that can come from us. And we're saying body, but it's energy and it's our interactions with people. And that's that skill. When I learned how to muscle monitor, that skill was like, I just giggled. That was candy. And it was like, wow, now how far can I take it? And I look back now, 20 years later, I'm like, wow, okay, I've taken it a long ways. And I've also, because of COVID and being online, really transformed it to be more user-friendly from a clinical perspective, because I don't work so much clinically as facilitator-wise. And then how do I do that? And empowering people with it. Yeah.
I've had conversations with some people where I think it's a skill that should be taught to everybody. However, it's also a skill that can lend itself to abuse if you can muscle test other people and use it in a negative way, right? Because if you're good at it, you learn so much. I use it with my clients. That's how I help them figure out what limiting beliefs are stuck in their head, getting in the way of their success. I mean, we can test it. The brain is it's like a hard drive on a computer, right? It stores every moment of your life in memory, and you can access it using muscle testing. You have to become skilled, but it's so easy to find out anything, to figure out what moment in time caused me to think of that as a bad thing or as a good thing, or why did I decide, at what point in my life did I decide that would be my belief, right? And from an adult's point of view, it makes no sense, but at the time I created it, it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So now it no longer serves me, so I'm ready to alter that belief to fit what I believe to be true now, right? To create my new future. But I've had conversations with people that it's a skill that has existed forever, but we made it wrong when it's so useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's still looked at as this woo-woo thing in a lot of communities. It's not. It's just the way your body works.
Yeah. I really enjoy, because I spent a lot of time having lost the ability to walk on my feet. I really became attuned to what the muscles in my feet were doing, and how I stand on my feet, and knowing when everything is going, how those 9 points on the foot are all in balance and when they're not. And that's muscle monitoring. That's it.
Yep.
Simple. And it's just be aware. Know how you're aware. Yeah.
We are near the end of our time together. Time goes so fast when I'm loving my conversations. But I want to give you a chance, if there's something some final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners. I know you have some tools available for them on your websites, like dancedebut.com, I believe is what it is.
Yes. Currently, it's dancedebut.com. I am shifting over to the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health, so that all my little pockets of things that I love to do can be under one title, not just dance. So the Tai Chi fits in there and the tea also fits in there. It's the Cape Breton Tea Company. So if people want to go and check out the stories on my website, capebretonteacompany.ca, there's explanations. On my YouTube channel, I have a playlist that is just for tea. So the essences of the herbs and that community tea I talked about, I actually took the relationship of different herbs and broke them down. So if people are interested in finding out how to play with those herbs, that might be a great place to start. And then maybe they decide on something that they want to play with tea-wise. And my YouTube channel also has Tai Chi Wellness on it. And that's a great place for people to get started with movement, very simple movements, if they think that's the direction they want to go. And on my Dance Debut site, you can find the different programs I'm running. We have some really fun workshops that we're doing online. So with Marion, Tanya and I is painting online to find your intuition. Like, just really fun, different, come and explore and, play with the universe and see what happens.
All of those links will be right down below. I know there's a lot available, but just click on the links below. You'll go right there.
Yeah. Perfect. That's great. Thank you for asking that, because it is lovely I just enjoy having the tools there that make it simple for people to make changes without adding to their day, without adding to their stress level. And as entrepreneurs, we have a lot on our minds. You don't want to say, I have to schedule one more thing in. It's really nice to just put a coaster underneath your glass of water and you made a change. And maybe put your tea together in a certain way because that's going to support you today. Simple. So.
Cool. Any other final words before we sign off here?
All is possible.
Oh, cool. I like
There's
that.
no borders. There might seem like there's borders, but there isn't. All is possible. Yeah.
Cool.
Jody Bartell has a song called Anything is Possible. I choreographed to that for kids. It's a kid's song. But that one very often will run through my head when I get to that place where there's that block piece, right? And from a dancer perspective, there's always a good piece of music that can inspire you past the blocks. So put your favorite tunes on, dance in the kitchen. That's what we do in Cape Breton.
Cool.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been so much fun to chat with you and weave through all the stuff that we weave through today. It's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoy our time. I go into these conversations not having a script, and then whatever direction we end up in, I think is what was meant to happen. So thanks for being flexible.
That's my middle name.
And I want to thank all my listeners for sticking around. We will have another episode soon, but for now, this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey, where we take out your emotional baggage and heal your emotional body so you get to enjoy the success you desire and deserve. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.